introduction to Scrum. It's more than just Scrum. It's Agile, but Agile is just a word. And how you manage that theory is what Scrum is. Scrum is basically the layer of communication between management and stakeholders and the developers. So, my name is Martin Kearns. I'm a certified Scrum coach and trainer. Renewtek's been involved in Agile for a number of years now, and I think we were one of the first 20 in the Agile Alliance corporate membership. And we believe strongly in this way of engaging because my belief is that it gives the client more control than what they've had in the past. And if you have more control, there's a better chance of success. Software development in the early 60s required just one machine, and it was on cards. So you had to get it right. Your design had to be the majority of the time had to be spent in design, because you might have had to queue up for a couple of hours to get onto the and put your cards in. So we had the design and construction quite separate but quite unique, and the process theory was able to do that. It was able to be used. And what we've found is that it's not the right match anymore. We're starting to have a huge number of different areas because technology is advanced. And waterfall, these are pretty major waterfall artifacts or stages. There's quite a lot in it. And we're finding an awful lot more pieces to the pie. And when you have so many pieces to the pie, it's very hard to place a process theory onto it, because it's very hard to say, I'll do this, and then I'll do that, and then I'll do this. And when something changes, the amount of downtime you have, or the amount of overhead time you have in trying to deal with the change in sequence is quite a lot. And it's even worse because our pies are even thinner pieces, because we have now got, n-tier amount of architecture. We've got 5 and 6 tiers of technology that we have to consider in our project. And that's a very difficult thing to have in a sequence or have all planned up front. So, it's summarised best in this slide. We're finding ourselves, rather than staying in the simple domain for software development, that we're finding ourselves moving more into complicated and the majority of complex regions of projects. And that is based on the fact that there's an awful lot of touch points, the amount of tiers within your architecture, and within the number of technologies or competencies that you have to work within. So when you're working in a complex environment, or even complicated, the theory of process management is not really right. And we find ourselves falling closer into chaos and complex theories. And all that chaos and complex theories are saying is that, you know what, every now and again, and quite regularly, you need to stop, see what you've done, make the necessary change to move ahead, rather than trying to deal with everything going forward. And then make some realistic goals that you can realise in a very short period of time. Because if they aren't achieved in a very short period of time, then they weren't realistic goals, and maybe the project isn't realistic. It gives you a number of reflection points rather than finding out when you go to UAT it's not working. So, to do that, a number of theorists in development and went looking, and they found what they were looking for in lean principles. Now, I'm going to just talk about lean principles and then the adoption of lean principles in software. So, lean principles talks about three main things. Load. Don't overload the process. And when in software development we were thinking about, okay, well, we could talk about documentation as being a load, but I think that's only one of many. I think the biggest load is where we do meetings, where we have, say, production support, where we have interference from other parties, interference from other teams, interference from other competencies. All of these are additional loads within the team that causes us not to be able to predict progress as well as we could, because we can't manage them. So, as a Scrum Master, Agile Project Manager, or Agile Coach, whatever title you want to work on, these are things that we have to look at. We have to consider, okay, what is causing such a load on my team? And then you can't remove all load, but what you try to do is minimize it. And the only way we can minimize it is by talking with our client and saying, we are losing X amount of money, or we're losing X amount of downtime or velocity because because of, and hopefully we'll be able to change that behaviour. I'll give you a very good example. My current client, when I went in, they had this consensus paralysis. Everybody had to be in a room and everybody had to agree for anything to be done. And if they weren't in the room, they'd have a second meeting where they went and reminded them. And I basically said the load on meetings within this project was enormous, and they didn't accept, or they didn't realise that, you know, to have 12 people in a room was X amount of money. And I said, you have 6 of my team in a room 4 times a day, all roughly about an hour. So my progress can only be measured by 50%, and we're on time if you go by that. And that was how I changed the behaviour, because that was unacceptable. So it was unacceptable to me to have my team removed from my area for 4 hours a day. And that's what we do as an Agile coach, as a project manager. We have to think like that. And that's how we have to communicate to our client. Flow. Flow is quite important. And it's mainly important because it's important to the people working within your team. I get very stressed if I have nothing to do, knowing that something really big is going to come. I know it's there, but I can't do anything about it. And that's what's happened with Waterfall. We all know in the second half of the project we're probably going to do an awful lot of overtime, where we've done very little in the first half of the project. And that's only one example of flow. Flow comes in a number of ways. And the one that really kills me in projects, and the one I'm always evangelizing, is having a touch point on a technical aspect. It could be technology, it could be, you know, some homegrown hybrid software solution that only one person knows, and you have to queue up to work onto that guy. And I have to remove those touch points and sensitivity as much as I can. So if I do find that Peter here is the only person who can do Java development on my team of 5, well, I'll be getting somebody to team up with him on the next day and starting to take over his tasks. And we also have, historically through software development, developed some techie egos. You know, I'm the only person who can do something, and they don't like to relinquish that control. So I have to try and encourage people to actually share their knowledge a little bit better than they have in the past. So, and flow is again another very important element of any successful project, and it's one that has to be considered and reconsidered regularly. Now, I don't say that we don't do overtime. What I do say is that I will give as much forewarning as I can to my staff, so they can change their work life to be able to, you know, do the overtime when it's required. I find it's very controllable to be able to ask people to do overtime tomorrow because of something I knew about a couple of days ago, but I didn't really tell them about. I will try to give as much forewarning as I can so that they can manage their life balance and I can manage the flow of my project, because really I shouldn't be having to wait till the end of the day to have everybody work in a panic mode.